Arejay from Halestorm, welcome to Metal Wani. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
You're very, very welcome. First, I'd like to talk about the latest album, Vicious. It's lyrically, it's been cited by the band as a deeply personal journey through some hard times and depression and self-doubt. Perhaps a war cry by some. What does this album mean to you personally?
You know, I think that's a really cool thing if people can take that from the album. I wouldn't say that we were going through like hard times when we were writing it. We were basically just trying to write a very honest record and try to write a record where we talk about things that we feel more confident to go a little bit deeper into subjects. Because I personally, like, I think just like anybody, like I suffer from depression every once in a while, and it comes and goes, you know. And I think that's becoming like it's becoming so well known. I think that by people talking about it, people are kind of now seeing like, oh, you're going through that, I'm going through that too. Like, there's a lot of similarities. I think that I was talking about this a little bit today about mental health and about how important it is, and how that there shouldn't be any shame in or any kind of stigma attached to like going and seeing like a brain doctor. They're like just saying like, if your body hurts, you go to a doctor. If you're feeling a certain way, like, or thinking a certain way, you should go and figure out what's going on. You know, like I've gone to a therapist, and I've just for the sheer fact that I want to speak to an expert who can let me know like why I'm feeling a certain way, or why I feel this way or that way, or sometimes I'm feeling really down or this and that, you know. Sometimes even with the touring, it can be a lot and it can cause a lot of anxiety. So, you know, I think that just from over the years of doing this, who knows what kind of level of mental traumas we've racked up, you know, that we are even aware of. But for us, our therapy has always been songwriting. So, you know, even when like nothing really tragic is happening in our lives, like, you know, it's okay to still kind of feel, you know, this way or that way. It's okay to kind of feel depressed here and there. So oftentimes though, when you feel, you know, if you're kind of in a negative headspace, a really great way to get yourself out of it is to do something creative, to create something. For me, songwriting is a big part of what kind of keeps me centered, you know? Without songwriting, I think I would just completely lose my mind. So I think, you know, I've always been an advocate for, you know, being very open about talking about that, you know? Like if you're feeling a certain, you know, darkness inside, if you get it out and put it into something creative, you're basically taking it out of yourself and putting it into something that can actually be made into something beautiful, you know?
It's quite interesting because some people find that very, very difficult. Some people can't let go of that thing. It's such a deeply personal thing that it's just impossible. But if you're, like you say, you be creative, it's an enabler, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can be creative in so many ways, as long as you can channel it into something constructive, you know, instead of destructive. So yeah, I think that, you know, without even thinking, I think in the lyrics it just kind of comes out of us, because I think for me personally, like most of the songs that I write come from a very, very literal sense of kind of an eternal battle. You know, you kind of having an eternal battle with yourself, and I always like songs like that because it does put the listener in that headspace. It makes them feel like they're there where you were when you wrote it. You know, like if you write so directly, you know, if you really put, you know, get your thoughts out in the moment when you're feeling them or when you're confused, it really helps kind of you know, bring a lot of honesty to the songwriting. So I think you're right. I think this album is probably our most honest to date. You know, there's very minimal outside writers as opposed to the last 3 records where we had a lot of co-writing. And when you're in a co-writing situation, you kind of want to still kind of fit a format. You want to make sure that what you're writing is still poetic and clever, and you want to bring that to lyrics anyway. But I find nothing wrong with you know, kind of being for me, I feel like I'm kind of a simpleton when it comes to lyrics. Like I love to get creative. I love words, and I love getting poetic and getting creative. And I think that you should get creative, but I don't think you should lose sight of the really honest facts that you're trying to state when you're pouring your heart into a song, you know. And that's the power of music, you know. Like a lot of people listening to it, you take from it something personal to you, and it kind of speaks to you in that sense when it's not so literal. We hear a lot of people say, like, your music helped me get through a hard time because this and that, and even though it wasn't the same situation, still, if you can take something from it and it can help you get through something, that's a really powerful thing, and that's the wonderful thing about music, in my opinion. You know?
Well, music is the greatest therapy of all, I believe.
Absolutely. We see a lot of fans that say that to us, and it is mind-blowing. Because when you're writing kind of more from a selfish standpoint. You're just kind of like putting your thoughts into song. But then when it's out there in the world and people listen to it, all of a sudden it's no longer yours. It's theirs now. It's their song. It's their music. So when fans come up to me and say, like, your song helped me get through a really hard time, or even in some extreme cases, they say, like, I don't know if I'd be alive if it wasn't for your music, you know? It's really mind-blowing, you know? And to them, I always say, you should definitely see someone who can help you understand how your personal mind works, you know? I think that's so important. You know, we've lost so many incredible people who are so well-loved, but you don't know what's going on internally.
No.
And sometimes even you don't know what's going on inside your own mind. So I think speaking to an expert, they can take what you say and they can decipher exactly what's going on, and they can kind of maybe give you some advice on how to change your life a little bit to make your life a little bit better.
And do you think with the album Vicious itself, you went back over and rewrote some of the music and some of the lyrics? Was that because of you placed a lot of importance on this particular album as a kind of like a personal story, or personal accounts, not particularly maybe of the band itself, but of the stories that you're telling?
Not consciously. I think the way that we wrote and recorded this album was very different. Like I said, like really hardly any outside. Like we felt confident enough to be able to go in the studio with just our producer Nick and just start from the ground up. Like, let's just start writing instead of like going to co-writes and making demos and then sending them to the label and doing pre-production and trying to turn these demos into Halestorm songs. Why don't we just go back to kind of the old school way that we used to do it back in, we call it the basement days. Because we started in my parents' basement, the four of us, writing and jamming and recording and making demos. So it was the same kind of deal. We're like, let's just go in the studio. Now we're at a point in our career where we can afford to go into a studio with a producer and just get the ideas out. So that's where we feel it's very honest. But you're right, like, it was a long process. So we would write a song and then we would move on to another song, and then the further we went down the rabbit hole, so to speak, the more we felt we were getting to a much deeper and better and more honest place. So we would go back and revisit some of the older songs that we liked and think, well, how can we make these even better, even more honest? How can we put these older songs up to par with these new ones that we're writing? So yeah, there was just it was a lot of for us, like, I don't think that we're able to release a record unless we love every single song. No. And the reason that we do that is because we know that when it comes to picking singles, it can be a real fight between a record label or a management company or a band. And for us, it was a total opposite. We love every single song. So when it comes to selecting singles, we obviously put in our 2 cents. Everyone on our team, puts in their idea. But we can all come to a really good agreement because, to us, we love all the songs. So like, sure, why not put them all out, Make them all singles. We love them all,
That's the beauty of the internet. You can do that almost immediately.
Exactly. I fully embrace that. I think it's a good thing, the way that people consume music. Now you have access to everything.
The world is a very open place.
And I use it too as a songwriter. Like, I love the fact that I have access to all the music in the world in my pocket,
It's amazing.
Yeah, I can look up anything. I can discover things that can inspire me. I love going to these festivals because I can, especially in Europe and in the UK, you can see bands that you don't normally get to see. You see a much more diverse lineup, so you can draw a lot of inspiration from other genres. And I'm always so hungry for inspiration. At Rock and Park, it was Tool, Slayer, and the 1975. Couldn't get any more diverse,
Absolutely.
But I loved all of it. I love all genres of music, and I think that more and more people are like that now. You're not so strict to one genre. because you have access to all the music. You're not stuck to just one radio station or one section of a record store. Like, you have access to all the music in the world, you know?
It's incredible.
So you can love all different kinds of music, yeah.
You can. I want to talk about this for a moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The message from the band since its inception, for me, has been very clear. You've always challenged the gender zeitgeist of rock and roll. How do you feel it is to continue that message as a band yourselves? I mean, I spoke to Andy Coppin recently, who cited you as one of the most important bands with a strong, positive female lead.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Me personally, I'm just so happy and so proud to be a part of it. As a a straight man, like, I know that it's for me. I'm just really glad to be a part of that. It's a tremendous honor for me to have such a strong female in my band, and yeah, just to be able to be involved in a band that has that kind of impact. Like, it's something that we really didn't notice ever in our career. Like, we were just like, well, we never made the fact that our singer is female our one-trick pony, so to speak. Like, it was never a gimmick for us. We're like, we just want to be a straight up rock and roll band who happens to have a female singer, and I think that was the best way to go, because it never pigeonholed us into any particular thing. We were just glad to be on a bill with a lot of great bands, and we were glad that a lot of bands helped us out along our careers. So, but oftentimes, like, we would stop and just kind of like notice, like, oh wow, like, she's the only female here. It's crazy, But now you see it less and less. You're seeing more and more female bands, more and more female fans, more and more female crew members on tour. It's becoming a completely co-ed genre of music, and I love that. I fully embrace it, and I fully love it. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think that no matter what your gender, your color, your sexual orientation, your political views, your religious views, whatever you are as a human, this is kind of what our song Chemicals is about. We're all made of the same elements, so there should be no limitations when it comes to music in general. No matter what you are, you can do anything, and to see more females doing it inspires more the next generation of women coming to the shows thinking like, well, if they can do that, then I can do that too. So for me, I just love being able to see that, and I love being able to be a part of that movement,
It's wonderful having a legacy at this point in your career, I guess.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we would never ever think to use the term legacy,
But it's true.
But I guess because when you're in the band, you're going day to day, you're on tour. Our primary focus is, let's just make sure we can play well. Let's make sure that the live show is great. Let's make sure that we're writing, we're making music. We often don't think about some of the impact that some people, from the outside looking in, can take from that. So that's very interesting to hear you say that, and that's a tremendous honor for you to even suggest that even at this point in our career, which we still feel like a relatively young band, to leave a, as you said, a legacy, or at least at this point some sort of impact. At least there is kind of at least there is kind of a North Star for other girls to look up to and feel inspired to pick up a guitar or pick up a pair of drumsticks. There's also, I see more and more female drummers out there too, which I think is awesome. And that needs to keep going,
Let's keep that going. You've got some great tour dates coming up.
Yeah.
One in particular that I'm very interested in is that you're going to be playing the Grand Ole Opry.
Yes!
How did that come about? That's
Crazy. It blows my mind every day, I mean, we get to play some of these milestone, lifelong dream. I mean, even yesterday, headlining a stage at Download is a lifelong dream. We did Wembley. We played Wembley. That was a lifelong dream. We played the Staples Center. We played, So yeah, same kind of deal. We were, getting to check all these milestones off of our bucket list, and it kind of, I think it really helps us kind of. It reminds us, because like we were saying earlier, when you're traveling, it's really easy to be consumed. I think a lot of artists, deal with this. It's really easy to be consumed with the mundane anxieties of every day, having to constantly be living on the go, living out of a suitcase, traveling. It can wear on you physically, lack of sleep, malnutrition, those kind of things. But when you actually get to like pick your head up and look around and kind of appreciate where you're at, I think that's a good reality check where you're like, you know what? I really can't complain because we really have the best job in the world. Like, look where we are.
Well, that's it. It's a story for the grandchildren in the future, isn't it?
Exactly. The grandkids are going to, if we ever have grandkids, you'll see it.
And speaking of the future, the bands like Kiss and Iron Maiden, and of course Slayer, are all coming towards sort of the end terms of their careers. Who do you see personally as the future of rock and roll music?
Oh my God. You know what? That's really tough to say because rock and roll is it's constantly surprising us. There's so many different flavors of rock and roll, and I'm seeing it more. I see it a lot in Europe and a lot more in the UK now, and now in the US. I see these rock and roll festivals, even the metal festivals, having a very wide range of different styles of music. So it's hard to say like what the next big flavor of rock and roll is going to be because it comes in so many different subgenres, so many different types of music, so many different flavors that it's impossible to know. But I don't know, like from what I see, like I think at the core of rock and roll, regardless of what kind of instruments you're using or what kind of sound you're producing, if the energy is there, I think that what keeps rock and roll alive is the blunt honesty. And when it gets to a point where it feels like you're manufacturing the same thing over and over and over again, something new comes out and like just totally breaks the mold. And you're like, surprise. Like, for example, like when Nirvana came out, it was like, surprise, boom. When the Beatles came out, same thing, boom, like earth shaking, So as long as the energy is there and the honesty and the rawness, then I think that rock and roll will live on, and I think that the future generations will be more like that, at least in my opinion. If you go out and see bands like the Fever 333, I think are playing tonight. They could very well be the next movement of raw energy. Of just pure, unadulterated, in your face aggression. And I think for rock and roll, metal, or punk, or whatever subgenre it is, as long as that's at its core, then it will live on forever, in my opinion. Yeah.
Wonderful sentiment there.
Thanks,
Arejay.
Man. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us at Metal Wani. It's been an absolute honor, privilege, and a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be in the camp with all everybody in your whole family and roster. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers.